Hello and welcome to Firstpost Live, where we bring you the day's top 4 stories from across the world. I am Joshua Barnes, live from the Firstpost studios. Let's begin with the headlines. After the Gaza declaration, US President Trump says he will attend the signing of a peace deal between Thailand and Cambodia during the ASEAN summit. The two neighbours agreed to a Trump-brokered ceasefire after deadly military clashes back in July. Ukraine claims over 30,000 houses in 3 districts in Kharkiv lost power after Russian forces attacked the nation's second largest city with guided bombs, also damaging a hospital. In Cameroon, the opposition challenger claims victory in the presidential election, challenging longtime leader Paul Biya, who has been in power for 43 years. Official results from Sunday's vote are expected in 2 weeks. Google announces a $15 billion investment in India over the next 5 years. The tech giant plans to build a new data center and an artificial intelligence hub, its largest AI facility outside of the United States. And India beat the West Indies by 7 wickets on day 5 of the second test to sweep the series 2-0. Chasing 121 for victory, opener KL Rahul remained unbeaten with 58 runs. With this, the West Indies have failed to win a single test against India in 23 years. We begin with the latest on the Gaza ceasefire. US President Donald Trump and regional leaders from West Asia stood witness and signed a declaration that cemented a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip, hours after Israel and Hamas exchanged hostages and Palestinians. US President Donald Trump hailed a tremendous day for the world and for the region, as more than 24 world leaders, including the leaders of Egypt, Qatar and Türkiye, sat down for talks in Egypt's Sharm el-Sheikh. Calling it a momentous breakthrough, Trump added that the leaders assembled had achieved what everybody said was impossible.
Momentous breakthrough that we're here to celebrate tonight is more than the end of the war in Gaza. It's with God's help, it'll be the new beginning for an entire beautiful Middle East. From this moment forward, we can build a region that's strong and stable and prosperous and united in rejecting the path of terror once and for all. We want to get rid of the terror and get on to other things. There are many other things in life that are so good.
Thank you very much, everybody. This is a tremendous day for the world. It's a tremendous day for the Middle East. And you can see that this is probably the greatest assemblage of countries in terms of wealth and power maybe ever assembled. And it's just an honor to be a part of it.
The document formalises the ceasefire that has effectively brought the war to a halt, with the leaders of the US, Egypt, Qatar and Türkiye signing as guarantors to the deal. In the declaration, the signatories pledged to pursue a comprehensive vision of peace, security and shared prosperity in the region. They also welcomed the progress achieved in establishing comprehensive and durable peace arrangements within Gaza. Egypt's President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi said the Gaza deal closes a painful chapter in human history and sets the stage for a 2-state solution.
I reaffirm our support and aspiration for the implementation of this plan, creating the political horizon necessary for the implementation of the 2-state solution, as it is the only way to achieve the legitimate aspirations of the Palestinian and Israeli peoples to end the conflict and live in peace.
However, the statement released by the White House later on Monday shed no light on the path ahead of peace between Israel and the Palestinians, and made no mention of a 1- or 2-state solution.
I'm talking about rebuilding Gaza. I'm not talking about single-state or double-state or 2-state. We're talking about the rebuilding of Gaza. A lot of people like the 1-state solution. Some people like the 2-state solution. We'll have to see. I haven't commented on that.
As part of the plan's first phase, Hamas on Monday released the last 20 surviving hostages after nearly 2 years of captivity. In exchange, Israel released around 2,000 Palestinians it held in its jails. In Tel Aviv, a huge crowd had gathered to support families of hostages who erupted in joy and tears as the releases began. In the West Bank too, huge crowds welcomed home the first prisoners and celebrated their release. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in a post on X, welcomed the release of all hostages after 2 years of captivity, calling it a tribute to unwavering peace efforts of President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu. India also attended the Sharm el-Sheikh Peace Summit with the Minister of State for External Affairs representing New Delhi. India reiterated that it stands for peace in the region and the resolution of issues through dialogue and diplomacy. Meanwhile, the United Nations has warned that Gaza's humanitarian crisis is far from over. The UN relief agency called for immediate access for aid and reconstruction, saying it is time to let in humanitarian help at scale. Even though the summit in Egypt echoes peace, much still remains to be negotiated. Among the potential sticking points are Hamas's refusal to disarm and Israel's failure to pledge a full withdrawal from Gaza. So, the coming phases in Trump's plan for Gaza could possibly prove more complicated to implement. The Gaza Declaration marks a tentative end to one of the bloodiest chapters in West Asia's recent history. But as history has so often shown, ceasefires may halt the fighting. Building peace is always the longer battle. Our next story is from Madagascar. The Eastern African island nation is the latest to be rocked by violent Gen Z protests. Madagascar's president, Andry Rajoelina, has fled the country after days of youth-led protests against power and water cuts turned into a massive anti-government moment. President Rajoelina addressed the nation on Monday for the first time since the unrest began in late September. Ignoring calls to resign amid escalating unrest, the president said he was sheltering in a safe place following what he called an attempt on his life.
Some presidents within the African continent offered to send troops to bring about peace in Madagascar. My response was that it is not in line with Malagasy values to send troops, which I declined. For that reason, I was forced to find a place, and I went to a safe location to protect my life. I will not let you be destroyed, and I will not let anyone destroy you, Madagascar. For that very reason, I personally opened the doors for consultation and dialogue to usher us out of this difficult situation. The problem is not how you express your opinion, but the repercussions and exaggeration of those that take advantage of the situation as we see how things are currently unfolding.
Ahead of his address, mutinous soldiers and security forces publicly declared support for the protesters. This included the elite CAPSAT unit, the same force that helped Rajoelina seize power in a 2009 coup. A paramilitary unit that had been leading the crackdown against the demonstrators also broke ranks and joined the protesters. Reports say Rajoelina's address was delayed twice as armed forces tried to seize control of the state broadcaster. He reportedly flew out of Madagascar, a former French colony, on a French military aircraft on Sunday. Reports in the French media claim Rajoelina struck a deal with French President Emmanuel Macron before leaving. Speaking in Egypt after a summit on the Gaza ceasefire, the French president said he could not immediately confirm these reports. He added that constitutional order must be preserved in Madagascar and grievances of youth should not be exploited by military factions.
I want to express our great concern and express France's friendship with the Malagasy people. And basically, I have two messages. I think it is very important that the constitutional order, institutional continuity be preserved in Madagascar, because the stability of the country and the interests of the population are at stake. And besides that, I want to say here as everywhere, that we look at the youth of these countries with great admiration, affection. We have a youth who has expressed itself, who is politically active, who wants a better life. And that is a very good thing. It just must not be taken over by military factions or foreign interference.
The Gen Z rallies in Madagascar were inspired by similar movements in Kenya, Morocco, and also in Asian countries like Nepal, Indonesia, and the Philippines. The protests erupted over chronic power and water shortages in the impoverished Indian Ocean nation, but quickly escalated into a broader anti-government uprising. The United Nations says at least 22 people have been killed and more than 100 injured, though the government rejects these figures. Madagascar, where the median age is under 20, has a population of around 30 million, and about 3/4 of its people live in poverty. The country has faced repeated political turmoil since gaining independence from France in 1960. Similar protests also broke out in 2009. Back then, Rajoelina was leading opposition rallies. The CAPSAT unit, which has now turned against him, helped him seize power in 2009 and lead a transitional government until 2014. He returned to office through elections in 2019 and was re-elected in 2023. However, public frustration has deepened over unfulfilled promises, rising poverty, and failing public services. To calm the unrest, Rajoelina sacked his entire cabinet last month. On Sunday, the Senate also announced the dismissal of its president, as demanded by the protesters. Now, with the president fleeing following the military revolt, will Madagascar plunge deeper into political chaos, or will it mark the beginning of a new chapter in the African island nation? We move on to gold and silver now, two metals that have long been symbols of wealth, security, and stability. Recently, they've been making headlines for a reason that has stunned even seasoned investors. After hitting a milestone of $4,000 per ounce last week, gold prices on Tuesday climbed to a record $4,125, while silver reached an all-time high of around $52. To put this into perspective, gold is now nearly 56% higher than it was at the start of the year, and silver is up almost 64%. These are extraordinary numbers, levels never seen before. Both precious metals are rising faster than the markets expected, and experts say this might just be the beginning of another golden rally. So why is this happening? The first reason lies in interest rates, or the cost of borrowing money. The US Federal Reserve, which decides these rates, is expected to cut them soon. When interest rates go down, people earn less from savings in banks. The second reason is uncertainty. The world economy is full of worry, from ongoing US government shutdown to trade tensions between America and China. China has tightened exports of rare earth metals, and in response, US President Trump has threatened new tariffs on Chinese goods. All this global friction makes investors nervous. That's where gold and silver come in. They're called safe haven assets, which means people trust them even when everything else looks shaky. There's more. Central banks, the big government banks of many countries, are also buying gold in large quantities. They do this to protect the wealth of their nations from risks in the global economy. This is giving gold an extra boost. Big financial players like hedge funds and exchange-traded funds are following the same path as well, pouring billions into precious metals this year. Silver, meanwhile, is riding on the same wave, but with some extra twists. Unlike gold, silver is also used in industries like electronics and solar panels, so when production slows or supply tightens, prices can move sharply. That's why silver often rises faster, but also falls faster too. Experts at Goldman Sachs warn that silver may see more volatility, meaning its prices might swing up and down more wildly than gold. All of this connects to one bigger story though, the value of the US dollar. Gold and silver prices usually rise when the dollar weakens, and that's happening right now. As the US economy slows, Treasury yields have fallen and the dollar's value has dipped, making precious metals look even shinier in comparison. For ordinary people, it means one thing. Those who have already invested in gold or silver are watching their holdings sparkle. But for those looking to buy now, the prices may feel sky high. And the question is, how much higher can they go? With gold breaking one record after another and silver racing right behind it, the world's attention now turns to Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell's speech later on Tuesday. His words could decide whether this rally continues or whether the glitter starts to fade. SpaceX, the private space exploration company founded by tech billionaire Elon Musk, reached another milestone in its quest for deep space travel. Musk's Starship mega rocket successfully completed its 11th test flight, ending with a splashdown in the Indian Ocean. The flights mark the final mission for the current prototype. In its test voyage, the massive Starship rocket lifted off from SpaceX South Texas launch sites at 6:25 p.m. local time on Monday. The two-stage vehicle performed as planned. The lower booster, called Super Heavy, detached and landed in the Gulf of Mexico, while the upper stage, Starship, travelled halfway around the world before descending into the Indian Ocean a little over an hour later. The spacecraft carried 8 mock satellites, simulating future Starlink deployments. Engineers confirmed that all objectives were met, declaring the mission a complete success. The test was significant because it was the final flight for the version 2 Starship prototype. SpaceX said it would now transition to version 3, featuring design upgrades to enhance reusability, heat shield protection, and flight endurance, all key steps towards making space travel more affordable and sustainable. The company is also modifying its Cape Canaveral launch sites to accommodate Starships, alongside its smaller Falcon rockets that currently ferry astronauts and supplies to the International Space Station for NASA. According to NASA, Starship is the world's largest and most powerful rocket, standing at 403 feet tall with a diameter of almost 30 feet. It is designed to carry both crew and cargo beyond Earth's orbit. The space agency plans to use Starship under its Artemis program to return astronauts to the moon, a goal that cannot be met by the end of the decade without the 403-foot Starship. It is also central to Elon Musk's vision of sending humans to Mars. Billionaire SpaceX already holds a multi-billion-dollar federal contract to develop a modified Starship as NASA's lunar lander. SpaceX's recent success followed years of trial and error, including multiple failed launches and mid-air explosions. Musk acknowledged that developing a fully reusable heat shield and achieving orbital refueling were among the toughest technical challenges. But despite setbacks, SpaceX's last 2 flights were widely regarded as breakthroughs that helped restore confidence in the Starship program and validated Musk's push toward low-cost, high-frequency space missions. NASA's Artemis 3 mission, planned for mid-2027, will use a special version of Starship to land astronauts on the moon. However, experts have warned that the mission could be delayed as China is moving ahead with its own plan to send astronauts to the moon by 2030. The US sees Starship as a key to staying ahead in what may become the second space race. With this successful splashdown, SpaceX moved one step closer to changing the future of space travel, from returning to the moon one day, reaching Mars. That is all we have on the show today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Until then, thank you for watching.
West Asia hasn't seen a day like this for 2 years. Instead of cries, there are cheers. Instead of protests, there are celebrations. Instead of bombs, there are smiles. Because today, Hamas released the Israeli hostages in their custody. All 20 living hostages were freed today. They are back home after more than 2 years. One can only imagine their trauma. Captured on the 7th of October 2023, hidden away and locked up in tunnels, surrounded by bombs and gunfire. And now, finally home. The day began in a celebratory mood in Israel. Dozens of people began gathering in Tel Aviv early in the morning. Hours later, the crowd swelled into thousands. Take a look.